Ben with the Tiger's Den, checking his audio levels, looks good. Back with some more Magic the Gathering arena action. Hope you all been well since the last time we saw you when we did the win all of standard event and went 6-2 with Teamer Scions, which was really cool. Yeah, so here we are with this is my first time sitting down on stream to play normal old arena things outside the event. So let's see, we got all these decks we don't have the cards for. That's cool. All these things that we have to update. This one can go away, I think. Just do a little bit of housekeeping here while we wait for people to file on in. I can't get rid of the Phoenix deck, right? Like, you know, that's just too much fun. It was my first ever real deck in Arena. I can't, in good conscience, trim that one out. But yeah, so if you didn't join us last time, we played in the event. We played, where did it go? Oh, right, there's 2 cards in it that I haven't made yet. We played this list Royal Teamer here, which is a Teamer Royal Scions deck with a oops, didn't mean to do that. That looks something like this once we take our cost reducers into account. I piloted it to 6-2. The Questing Beast was really cool. It's awesome with the Royal Scions. This is kind of the first thing when the cards were being spoiled that I looked to build, and I got a couple of suggestions from streamers and their communities for updates, so that's why we have the Skargan Hellkites and the Sarkons in here. Cannot take credit for that one, but took this in. It was really fun, but we're not going to play it today. I've updated it a little bit, but for now we're going to be working on some of the Grixis decks that we have been playing in the past. So we've got 2 here that are very similar but slightly different, mainly in that this one's called Rakdos Real, which is just a Rakdos deck that splashes blue for Royal Scions. And then we have a couple of blue cards in the sideboard. But I think for right now, we're going to jump into Legion's Shadow. So for those of you who watched last season's games, we did... this was probably the deck that we put the most work in on. This deck that was kind of inspired by the Death Shadow decks of Modern, where we had a 1-drop that can just, you know, punch way above its weight, plus, you know, these undercosted beaters. You just try to, you know, establish an early lead with discard to disrupt your opponent's plan, with removal to keep them behind you on board, and then just close out the game. We lost some of our nice goodies, especially our mana base became a lot rougher, so we have a couple of Fabled Passage in here to try to even that out a bit. So because of that, we have dropped down to a mostly black deck with a little bit of blue, and then double red just for Embercleave. And yeah, if we look at our mana sources here, so 27, so we have like 2.5 times more black than the next heaviest source. So we want to 77 versus 34%. So I've been just experimenting with this, trying it out. I've tuned it quite a bit. I started out with 4 Bone Crusher Giant, which I thought was going to be great, but I've just learned that the 2 mana is often a bit too much to really be amazing on the stomp side. Like, there's a lot of things you want to kill for two damage, but it was clunkier than I expected, so went down on that. Trying out 4 Regisaurs for now because Regisaur, Scions, and Embercleave are also awesome. And I've been waffling on what I want for my threats. Currently we're just at it's really a 2-drop slot where I'm not super happy with anything, basically, but except for Stormfist Crusader, which I've loved. So anyway, so while we lost a few things post-rotation, we did gain one really cool thing that makes this deck feel even more like a Grixis Death Shadow deck in Modern, and that is we got Embercleave, which, if you watched the previous stream, I already went over this, but if you've missed it, and if you haven't been seeing this card yet, this is definitely one to keep an eye on. It's legendary, so you can only have 1 in play. It's very expensive, but it has that cost reduction, and when you throw this on a Regisaur, or a Spawn of Mayhem, or a Rankle, or anything like that, Pumped Knight of the Ebon Legion, this just wins the game immediately. If you curve like Regisaur into Scions into Embercleave, this thing hits them for 20 on its own, with Trample and double strike, so it's dealing 10 and then 10 again. So everything dies that goes in front of it, and often you just win immediately. It's really cool with Rankle too, because if we want to get our activations off of it, this triggers every time it deals combat damage, and double strike means that it's dealing combat damage twice. So as long as they don't block 4 or more of the damage, this is going to hit them twice and get 2 triggers. So it's effectively hitting them for 10 damage if you use the lose a life, draw a card trigger, or making them, you know, drop their entire hand or something like that. One thing to note with this deck is that even though we're a little bit, you know, this is a moderately low curve for the deck. Average cost is 2.9, and that's before you count this is a 2-drop, and this is often a 3-drop, and this is usually like another 3-drop. But we got 25 lands in here, and that is because I think that usually I'd run 24 in a list like this, but because of Regisar, we want to be able to drop our hand really quickly. So drawing extra lands is not that bad, because we kind of want to be hellbent, because then Regisar, we're not discarding cards too, and then when we're hitting with Rankle, that just becomes a one-sided discard a card, maybe discard a card twice with Embercleave. So we really want to be able to play our cards quickly, so we've got some extra land in the deck. And then also we have the Royal Scions, which can loot us through our cards to find, you know, get us out of a flood, basically. If we don't have enough lands to play the Royal Scions, then, you know, their looting doesn't help. But if we draw too many lands, we can then play the Scions and get rid of those extras. So better to err on the side of too many lands, in my opinion, in that case. Also, because this is a 2-drop into a 3-drop, and this is a 3-drop into a 3-drop, we are more often having a bunch of stuff just coming up our hand and going, man, I wish that I could cast a couple of these right now, because this is effectively 6 mana, and this is effectively 5 mana total that we're going to want to spend at some point in the game, probably. And that's the thing that people, I think, kind of are missing with these adventure cards, is that it's sometimes, you know, they're not really gumming up your hand because you're still casting them for either half, but it does mean that you have more stuff that you'll want to do with your mana, so sometimes an extra land or 2 isn't the worst there. So this list is one that I have not tried as much as the other ones, because I haven't been using the Thought Erasure variant, but I just got so sick of trying to find 2-drops and 1-drops that I like that I went, okay, forget it, we'll just run this, which I love, and this, which I like as a couple, and we'll just throw Thought Erasure in there, and we'll play this version of the deck, and then, you know, go up on Rankle and Third Spot Mayhem, stuff like that. In terms of the other cards in the deck, I know that I think people are coming around on Stormfist Crusader, but I do want to talk about it for a second, because this is another one that I saw almost exclusively, I think, people were panning this card. And this card is great, in my opinion. If you're the beatdown deck, the extra draw is going to help you more than your opponent more often than not. The exception of this is when you draw them into a board wipe, but that's something that you just have to accept, in my opinion. And of course, if they have Narset out, that makes your life pretty miserable. You just have to try to close out the game or kill Narset immediately. Also, this is representing probably 3 damage per turn, because it has Menace, which is really hard to block, especially when you have other, like, if you have a Rotting Regisar out, it's like, okay, you can spend 2 blockers on Stormfist Crusader. They're not going to do that. They're going to be blocking your Regisar, obviously. So this is getting you in 3 damage per turn, usually, and when you're the aggressive deck, and you have things like, you know, Embercleave someone down for, you know, even just dealing 6 off of this with an Embercleave, or getting in for 10 with a Spawn of Mayhem in the air, or, you know, 14 with the Scions. That's pretty good. And also this bears a Scion +2/+0 really well, because it's hard to block. So anyway, I really love Stormfist Crusader. It does come out in game 2 and 3 sometimes, but you know, it's fine to have cards that you sometimes board out. Speaking of cards that you board out, there are some games where this deck, some of these cards just don't work very well against the opponent. Like sometimes Bone Crusher Giant is just way too clunky, or Rotting Regisar is getting chump blocked all the time. And one thing that I picked up from Jeff Hoagland, who's been doing a lot of Grixis building, because we both latched onto the Royal Scions immediately, and we're just like, okay, all of our decks are going to involve this card. So he's been running Improbable Alliance in Grixis with Scions and Rankle. And I don't think that I like this main deck, because I feel like the way that I usually win with this deck is, you know, turn 4, turn 5, we've just blown them out so hard with evasive, huge creatures and stuff like that. But in those games where that doesn't happen, like in the Jund Adventures deck and things like that, where opponent is, you know, they're often getting so much card advantage. Okay, I thought there was something wrong with my stream over there, but it looks good. Where opponents, you know, getting all this card advantage, and they're able to slam the brakes on, and, you know, 2-for-1 us with Regisar and stuff like that. Having some Improbable Alliance is really sweet, actually, because we can get into these board states where we can flood the board, because we have Royal Scions that trigger an extra draw, we have Stormfist Crusader that triggers an extra draw, and we have Rankle that can trigger extra draw. And then after we trigger the extra draw with Rankle, we can make everyone sacrifice a creature. So in those games where we want to be, where we kind of need to be, we can't quite close it out fast enough because our opponent has so much removal and we have to grind them out, Improbable Alliance is fantastic. And, we're not usually using the final ability there because 6 mana is hard to come by in this deck. And we have things we want to be doing with it, like pumping out of the Ebon Legion and activating Castle Lochtwain. But when it's good, it's really good. And I actually have a list that's more dedicated to Improbable Alliance that, it's like hyper-focused on this card. It runs Bag of Holding and stuff like that. I don't think that this is a good fit for that exact strategy, but I do love having that as an out in game 2 and 3 when we need that grindiness. And, maybe some of these cards we're going, okay, we're, opponent is getting more out of Stormfist Crusaders, we'll take that out. Or opponent has too many chump blockers, so we're taking out Registrar or something like that. We can bring this in and not have to bring in only answers, because everything else in here is an answer. We can bring in some more threats that also help us answer their board. So, anyway, without further ado, because that's enough talking, let's jump into some games. And you'll see here we have 30 red or blue spells and 20 red or blue spells. So that worked out really well. And let's bring up some Legion's Shadow, see how we do. As I mentioned, this is going to be my first time playing this since rotation. I was out of town for the first week and change of the new standard format, so don't have a whole lot of experience with it yet, but we'll just run it through some best of one, see what we think, see how it goes, see what's good, see what's terrible. I would love to have blue here, but we've got Stormfist Crusader, we've got a Regisaur, we've got 2 Stormfist Crusader. And that is a nice thing about Crusader too, is that because we're kind of greedy on mana, our odds of being drawn out of really bad mana situations are pretty good because of that card. Okay, so let's just drop this guy because we can't kill the Leaf or the Paradise Druid while it's untapped. And even if we could, it would probably be better to get something on the board anyways. Although I guess killing this into casting the Bone Crusher. Okay, well, that's really good for them. Questing Beast is a very good card, as you may know. So being able to have discarded that would have been very nice, but, can't always get what you want. So let's get in for 2, because we have Menace. We can't block. And then I think we're just going to have to drop Registar to tangle with this Questing Beast. Hope they can't remove it. Is there a particular... We're going to drop this, conserve our life total. We don't have anything that takes double blue, so we can just shock this in whenever we need it. I guess the only... we'd have to double Thought Erasure or something like that next turn, which we can't draw Thought Erasure and other blue source. Now, if they're on mono green here, their way of dealing with Registar is pretty much swing Questing Beast into it. So they get to pump their Pelt Collector if they do that. Okay, well, this is a point where this is one of the times when Stormfist Crusader actually kind of comes back to bite us because our opponent just ramped so hard right there. They have 3 Mana Dorks out now, so they're going to be able to drop their hand really quickly. While we're probably going to have a harder time doing that. Alright, so what do we want to do this turn? I think we want to stomp on this guy, and... yeah. Let's stomp that guy, we'll play this, we'll take a look at what's in their hand. I want to do that first, because that might inform the rest of what I do. Okay, they've got a Great Henge, they've got 1-2 power, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6... okay, we have to get rid of this Great Henge because it's going to utterly ruin us, and we have a Murderous Rider in hand to deal with another Questing Beast. So I think we're going to have to just take the hit off of the Questing Beast, because we can't... well, I guess we could shock it and kill it, but... or no, we already played land this turn. So it's just going to be... hit this guy. Now if they want to block, they have to sack their Gilded Goose, because they'll have to block with both of these guys. Gonna take 4 off of Questing Beast. at the very least. I assume they'll also get down Barkhide or Sir Farron. I love the name the Henge Hammer, by the way. It just sounds like so pulp action film, you know? I assume they're going Leafkin, get down, QB. I guess they can actually drop their entire hand here. Which again, yeah, heavy ramp is, along with more aggressive decks, heavy ramp is one of the things that is the biggest downside to Stormfist Crusader. Although, in heavy ramp decks, they are drawing more misses than you are, because they are drawing those ramp creatures that aren't going to do as much for them. So, there is that too. Oh, well there's Embercleave. Too bad I don't have a Registrar to stick that on. Had to chump with it. Okay, so, let's think about our turn. They have, so this guy can block. Yeah, we are in a very bad position here, as you can see. I think we drop a second one of these. And then hold up the... Do we hold up Murderous Rider, or do we play Bone Crusher Giant? If they have Wolf, Bone Crusher Giant is just such a huge blowout that I think we'll just do this. And we have to keep track of how low we're getting with Stormfist Crusader here, too. That is not an irrelevant thing here, since we're on the back foot. Oh boy. Alright, well let's hope they overcommit to Questing Beast here and we can just murder it. But I assume this is going on Sir Farron, because then Sir Farron pumps whoever else. You can put it on Barkhide Troll if they want to be really cute. Because that'll give them, that'll give them a bunch of hexproofs. But I don't think that's... Yeah, okay.
We're fit enough to survive.
Really don't like them playing the Paradise Druid there because it's not going to do anything, and that gives me the information that they are out of everything now. Oh, I forgot about the trigger here. Right. Okay, well they're putting it on Questing Beast anyway, so that's nice. Alright, so go to 7. This takes us to 5 next turn. So we are actually just dead here. To our... Oh no, because one of these guys will die. They can't actually protect this guy. Because they don't have mana for it. So yeah, we'll go to 1. Swat of Mayhem's pretty cool. But a turn too late, I think. I mean, we might actually be able to survive off of Murderous Rider's lifelink. Yeah, we technically are not dead here. Oh, yes, we are, because of Vivian. Okay, well, we'll just put this down. We're actually pretty close here. If we'd have had a little earlier spawn of Mayhem, we could Embercleave it up and actually kill them unless they blocked here. But, yeah, we'll just do this. Give them the good game. And scoop it up. So, yep, we got some severe flooding there. An opponent only hit 4 lands and then a bunch of creatures, some of which produced mana. So that actually stacked up really, really well for them. And of course, we opened with a lot of lands too. Like we could have thrown that hand back maybe, but I think it was a fine keep. It was just the number of lands that we drew was pretty excessive. I will say that I'm not... Of all of the cards in this deck, the one that I'm the least hype on is probably Spawn of Mayhem. And it's not because it's bad, it's because it's a sometimes 3-drop, sometimes 4-drop, which is fine. But it, the fact that it doesn't have haste on a sometimes 4-mana card is a little bit rough, because it feels like in a deck like these ones, you want as much haste as possible. So that's why I'm up to 4 Rankle instead of 4 Spawn of Mayhem, even though Rankle is legendary. Just because I feel like those curve toppers, you know, if you put down your big threat and then it gets like Teferi bounced or time wiped or something like that, you're just so far behind compared to, you know, if your 1 or 2 drop eats that, you know, you're fine. If your Murderous Rider gets bounced, like, great, thanks opponent. Alright, so let's... The reason to play this pre-combat, looks like we're probably up against Golos. Opponent seems to be reading our card. I don't figure out what it does. It could be that this is not Golos, but Guildgate. Well, Guildgate Island, actually. Maybe this is a... Oh, this looks like it's an Is It build with some budget considerations, maybe. Ooh, Thought Erasure here is fantastic, so let's shock this scene, see what they got. Shocking in this one so that we have... Oh, I guess we already had double black. Yep, we're getting rid of the Royal Scions because this is the draw 2 deck, and we want them to be drawing 2 as infrequently as possible, and they're... Oh, let's see, do we want land number 5? I don't hate that, honestly, because I'm going to want to get Hellbent ASAP, so that our Rankle is hopefully just making them eat through their hand. And we've got, you know, ooh, they just top-decked Improbable Alliance. That's fantastic for them. That was probably the best possible thing that could happen, is that they have this on top of their library and then find it right there. Because now we're going to have a hard time getting Rankle in. But, I mean, that's what we got to do. Just start swinging in and make them chump. So you know they have an opt. They can put this guy down. I hope they spend their mana on this guy into opt, because that won't really do, like... Looks like they're probably going to Lava Coil Rankle, but... Yep. So they opt, get a 1-1. We can swing past it, take them to 10. Why are they not opting here? I wonder what they're holding up for. I guess we're going to find out. Alright, let's put this island down so that we can go Island Swamp for Thought Erasure and then have up Murderous Rider if we want it. Okay, they opt, but this doesn't let them trigger Improbable Alliance, because they haven't drawn a card yet this turn, unless they have... Am I just totally missing something? Like, what was their other card draw this turn? Let's see. Scorching Dragonfire kills our Crusader. Lava Coil kills our Crusader. Radical ID is an extra trigger. If they get a land, this gives them a thing, and then we have to spend a removal spell on it, so I think I'm getting rid of the Sailor, honestly. Don't want that. Yeah, now we have kept too many lands at this point. Oh, right, the Stormfist Crusader gave them the draw, of course. Yeah, obviously. I'm wondering if I just want to play Murderous Rider here. Well, I mean, I guess we'll... Yeah, I think we're playing a Murderous Rider just like this. Because with all these chump blockers, our 4 Scions and 2 Embercleave are the ways that we're going to get our damage through. And so if we get them to commit this turn to removing our board, then hopefully we'll be able to stick our next thread. And... Yep. Yep. Well, another thought erasure is not the worst thing. Especially because we can... So they're going to get one more... I'm getting rid of that. Okay, okay. So I was doing that because then I can play this guy, have a threat on board, and not need to worry about getting... holding a removal spell up for this guy who can get out of control pretty quickly. Oh, of course, this is actually 2 triggers for them. Man, the fact that they top decked this the turn after we got our cast our Thought Erasure is just so brutal. Let's see, what did we get rid of? We got rid of the Scions, which we could have just murdered, so... Yeah, that was super, super strong for them. I think I'm going to leave this Steam Vents in hand, because that's a nice thing for us to pitch to Royal Scions if we want to pitch something. Oh, actually, with the Castle Locktwain there, we probably just want to do this. And we might actually just want to play out this Murderous Rider, honestly. This is 4 mana total, so we can shock this in and then activate, and still have Murderous Rider up. I think that's what we're going to do. They're a pretty threat-light deck, and they only have a couple cards left, so I'm going to do this. Throw this guy down, because if we have 2 creatures in play, that means that opponent has to get twice as many chump blockers. Or if they have removal... Ooh, okay, well that's a huge punish there. They top-decked a Spectral Sailor. So we're probably out of this game at this point. In which case it was right for us to hold up Murderous Rider, but I think that it was probably an okay play to put this guy down, just because with them getting a chump blocker every turn, we can never get in with just 1 creature. But now, unfortunately, they have... just a guaranteed activate this guy every time. Ooh, okay, and Crackling Drake is probably going to close up the game here. Well, there's Embercleave. Oh, I should have activated this first. Oh well. I wouldn't have been able to play Embercleave if I had. Let's see if they just don't block. Nope. So, we can kill their Crackling Drake, and... because they're only taking them to 3 here. We can kill their Crackling Drake and gain some life. So, we're still alive. That top deck pretty much saving us there, and then we can actually save on mana by throwing this on here. They get another chump blocker for free off Spectral Sailor, plus whatever. Oh, jeez. That's tough to deal with. And they get another chump blocker there. They can get in for 3 in the air here, but they may choose not to, so they have better blocks on Murderous Rider. I think I'm putting in a stop here, so that I can... We'll have 3 mana up after activating Locktwain. That's enough to cast almost everything in our deck. And the odds that we don't draw a land are not great. I'm doing it now because then I'm taking less damage. Oh, I did not look at how that was going to tap us. Because, yeah, that took us off of all of our black. Fortunately, oh, we drew 2 black sources, so it's exactly what we needed, honestly. You know, just absolutely tap off all of our black and then draw a bunch more black. Well, I see nothing to do but swing in, gain some more life, and they can't... Like, they don't really have a favorable block here, right? Like, they pretty much have to get rid of their Drake. Put another stop here. Another Sailor, so we take 5, go to 13. So Murderous Rider plus Embercleave keeping us alive and, you know, fighting through multiple Crackling Drakes. Second Alliance is great. Do they have another way of drawing a card? that's a good tap. Spawn of Mayhem is very good. Another Spawn of Mayhem is also very good. We can't play them both this turn, of course, because we tapped ourselves down. So this is another line of lethal. It's going to force them to keep some guys back. They can't hit us for 11 here. They do have main deck Lava Coil, so if they have a Lava Coil, then I mean, we can play another one next turn and hopefully not die. Also, this guy will be a 6/6 next turn with Ember Cleave on. Okay, so they draw. We get these two. They have a couple of cantrips. They can get more next turn. They're mousing over spawn, so I imagine something's coming out here. Or I guess they're just reading it and remembering. It's got a fair amount of text on it. Spectacle, 2 keywords, and 4 lines after that. Okay, they're just gonna double up on removal, it looks like. Get in for 6, take us to 5. So we're dead on board now. Scion's coming in a little bit too late, I think. 1, 2, 6, 8. Yep. Yep, we are just dead. I guess we'll draw a discard. Play another one of these guys. Give him the game. Kill that guy. Go to -2. Yeah, boy, the fact that like those last couple of draws there were really good for us. It was just we had too many turns of lots of lands again. Which, you know, running 25, and that's coming back to bite us a little bit here. I think that we're up 1 extra basic swamp, so when you see lots of basic swamps, that might be that extra land being drawn, but I think 25 is fine. It hasn't felt bad to me in previous games, and you definitely don't draw conclusions off of 2 games of Magic. It looked like there were no Ironcrag Pyromancers in their deck there, because we went through an awful lot of their deck because of how many cards they drew. And, yeah, never saw... Ooh, this is a nice opening hand. So I wonder if they were running that. It's a really cool card, but it is one of those things that, you know, it doesn't really do anything outside of... I mean, it's the 0/4, I guess. Okay, the one awkward thing with this hand is that we can't curve Stormfist into Royal Scions. Okay, well this is going to change everything. Because we'll want to go... Knight. Up the Ebon Legion on 1. It's a great top deck. Best we could ask for. So we can't, unfortunately, curve 2-drop into Royal Scions here. Unless we get another land. It would have to be a blue-producing land, I believe. Okay, so we're up against stacks here. Alright, so... I'd rather play this out, and then next turn we can just run out Bone Crusher Giant, and then after that we can Fabled Passage for Island. And of course, unless they remove Stormfist Crusader, which it looks like they're considering, there's a lot of Oath of Kaya's in these, or not Oath, yeah, Oath of Kaya in this list. You've got 2 chances at drawing blue here, which is very nice, helping us to draw into the right colors. Oh, no Oath. Second Guild Globe. Ooh, okay. Well, change of plans. So question is, do we pump, do we play Regisaur, do we play Spawn? Our opponent's probably going to Wrath us next turn. But I want to get Spawn onto the battlefield. I mean, I want to get one of these creatures onto the battlefield. I don't think it's worth it to... I don't think it's worth it to not commit anything, because we'll probably be too slow for just relying on these two creatures. And we can't, like, pump Knight of the Ebon Legion and then throw Embercleave onto it at the same time. Alright, so hopefully they don't find a Plains. They just forgot to throw it in their deck, maybe. Oh, they found it, chat. They found the Plains. Yep, Kaya's back. Okay. So now... throw it on the next guy. Discard Bone Crusher here. Yep, and that is the weakness of Rotting Regisaur. And Spawn of Mayhem, is that by the time you're getting him down, your opponent's getting Teferi. Although here we can kill Teferi with Bone Crusher and then play Regisaur again. Then we'll have just these two cards in hand, so we'll have to be discarding one of them. Are we getting Thought Erasured here? Because that'll be oh yeah, that's super rough. Yeah, they take Reggie, so we can play and then bring out Bone Crusher Giant, kill Teferi, then put this guy into play. Oh, there's another Spawn of Mayhem. Do we want to do that instead? We can't kill Teferi and get out Spawn. And I think with the amount of removal they have, I'm okay with just make them keep clearing our stuff away until hopefully they can no longer do that. So... yeah, let's put this out and crack it for a swamp, because we got double red already. We have a lot more black than red in this deck, including activating Locthwain. Or Locthwain. I always imagine that the H in Locthwain is silent, but I guess I don't know if that's the case. So let's stomp on this guy, and then put this one out, because that gives us the body for Royal Scions and or Embercleave. And I really don't want to turn on like instant speed Kaya's Wrath and stuff like that by letting Teferi sit out there. Yep, okay, so there's the next removal spell. Go to 14. That's one thing with this deck too, is that they draw through their deck so quickly because of all these eggs. Including like the actual literal egg, which I don't think we've had an actual literal egg that was an egg in a very long time. Alright, so now question is, do we want to go with Rankle instead of Spawn? I think we still want to go with Spawn, because even though it's slow, it dodges Kaya's Wrath, and we've only seen... or it dodges Oath of Kaya. We've only seen one so far. And then... they also don't know... oh, they don't know about either of these cards. But yeah, this one carries an Embercleave. Well, just as well, I suppose. Okay. We just want to get in for the 3. No, I think it's Spawn of Mayhem. Because there's one thing in their deck. They probably have 4 copies of Oath. And so that's 3 cards in their deck that don't kill this, that do kill Rankle. And the 3 points of damage immediately isn't going to do much right now. Okay, yep. Another board wipe. Another egg. Boy, I really wish that I had one more mana, one more land. I don't think we've... yeah. With the instant speed removal that I imagine they have, I don't think I like playing out the Regisaur as much here. I think I'm just going to go Rankle. And then... rotate it up with an Embercleave here. do I want to make them draw? I think I kind of do, because they have all this stuff they want to spend their mana on to get this into their graveyard. I do not want to discard, however. So there we go, and we want to get a 6th land so that we can double spell. Gonna put in the stop here so I don't forget to crack this, but plus that, deals them extra damage, which is not irrelevant. Okay, another Kaya's Wrath. Because yeah, that actually makes Rankle lethal there. Ooh, another Thought Erasure. Alright, I think we're getting the basic mountain here, so that if we want to play Embercleave and Scions or something at some point, way down the road, we can do that. Now if they have removal, the right toss here is Royal Scions, I feel like. Because they can probably 2-for-1 Regisar, because there's usually instant speed removal in these decks, although we haven't seen any yet. It's all been sorcery speed. Okay, another Spawn of Mayhem. Well, let's make them keep having board wipes. Or, I mean, they're using board wipes to kill our Regisars, so I imagine they don't have single target removal right now. So yeah, anyway, one of the things this deck wants to do is to crack all of these eggs. Geez, Planar Cleansing, good lord. Okay, well there they crack the eggs. Alright, so let's... So if they dance with the Mancess here, we're pretty dead, because they're going to have enough to... leaving this in hand, because we can shock it in if we need to, and then we can loot this away if we want to next turn. So yeah, if they have dance, they just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... Got like 6 targets here. Wow, they have found a lot of... How much of their deck have they got? They've gone through 27 cards. They've gone through 21, I guess. Because we're both looting through our decks in different ways here, although I guess we haven't had as many chances to. Scratch the top, that probably doesn't bode well for us, but they don't have Dance of the Mance right now. And they don't have mana for it right now. Too bad we haven't had a chance to get Embercleave in. Because otherwise we would just be able to kill them here. As it is, Rankle has them dead next turn. The question is, this is 5, 6 damage. Assuming they can't deal with this. And yeah, this is why I like Rankle as my curve topper here. Because if opponent's tapped out or they don't have instant speed interaction, we're always getting something out of it. So I think we're doing this just to give ourselves an extra chance of being able to kill them.
There is no virtue without bravery.
So anyway, I imagine they don't have Dance of the Mance, because I think they would have cast it last turn. They had more than enough mana to make X high enough, so I don't think we want them to draw here, because they're dead on board either way. So I think I'm actually going to have them discard, because we don't need land number 7. Like, I don't see a place where that's relevant. And if we can take them off... Like, most of their deck is gas. Most of this deck is gas, or things that draw them into gas. So, even if we make them discard an egg... Okay, they still had lands. I thought they might have been out of lands at this point, because they have had a lot of them. So they didn't answer for Rankle in these 3 cards. Oh, plus they can crack some stuff, so they have a couple of redraws. Oh yeah, they can gain life off of that. That's not going to save them, though, so I don't think that was a great idea on their part, unless they can... If they have Thought Erasure for Embercleave, then that was a good play. But if they can't deal with the Embercleave, then they don't really get anything out of that, because they're dead either way, and this could have spin, I don't know, use it to filter their mana. I was thinking that this actually cantrips on the back side, not the front side. I haven't played Golden Egg. Oh, actually, I have played Little Golden Egg because it's in my Alliance deck. Improbable Alliance. Also, my lord, how many of our threats do they go through? Okay, there's Dance. So I imagine they just top deck that, because I can't imagine them not having cast it last turn if they had it. Because this has to be... Oh, it has to be 6. So, okay, so that was the first turn they could actually do that. I thought it had to be x equals 4, but obviously that's not the case. Okay, so I guess we will loot, and we'll find more lands. And then we'll give them the good game. We were actually one turn from just killing them with the Royal Scions as well. So, again, we definitely had a really good shot there, because I needed that land. Oh, actually, so making them discard that land was really relevant, because because that could have taken them off of Dance of the Manse, reanimating all of their targets there, which then Royal Scions would have been able to ult the turn afterwards, things like that. Opponent goes first. This hand looks saucy. I'm probably curving Scions into Rankle into Regisar. Let's see. Wish I had a way of muting, just like of mechanically muting my my snowball so that I could take a drink without being very loud about it. Alright, so we have a question, which is, do we want to block Gutterbones with Knight? And the answer is, doesn't matter. It's probably going to be no. Oh, well. That's pretty nice for us. I'm going to stop here because I think it's more likely... Given that card, I'm thinking that this is more likely... They're more likely to want to spectacle out a... like, if they have Priest of Forgotten Gods, we get really punished for this. But I think they would have cast that last turn. Yep, okay. So, anyway, my thought process there was... I didn't want them to be able to spectacle out a Spawn of Mayhem if they had a land. And then I'm avoiding the damage and stuff like that. And, you know, if they want to spend this turn rebuying Gutterbones, like the whole turn, I'm okay with that. Alright, so we're going to discard a Rankle here. Oh, that's too bad. So discard a Rankle. Play a Rankle. And what we've seen so far, I'm guessing that our card quality is higher than theirs. But we also have this extra land that's not doing anything yet. So I'm going to discard the land. And then make us both draw and lose a life. Ooh, they dropped a drill bit, so we protected our Scions unless they have more discard, of course. Okay, so we will get rid of this Blood Crypt we just drew. Now if they have Duress or another drill bit, that's very, very bad for us, but they seem not to, so that's great, because now Rankle is just a one-sided target player discards, and of course they can't block with Order of Midnight, so...
Your heart can overcome any challenge.
And I think that, again, because, well, they have discard, so if any of these cards are like, if they draw another drill bit or something, then we probably... Well, we have 2 mana up. We have double black. They're at 9. This brings them to 8. I think I'm okay with making them lose the life, draw the card. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, unfortunately we had to tap off of our only source of red, so we cannot play Stormfist Crusader. I think this means they're trying to spectacle something, so very likely a Spawn of Mayhem or get back Gutterbones, which... Oh, or Drill Bit. There you go. Well, that's a pretty good draw. Actually, we're going to play this now just so that we can make them discard unilaterally again. They can't block Rankle anyways, so this shouldn't change their decision-making process. They can drop their last card. We're not going to draw this turn. Ooh, they had to discard their Ayara. And they top-decked an Ayara. Well, that's pretty good. I don't think it gets them there. I think they're pretty dead right now. Yep. Opponent agrees. And you can see that's another reason that I really like Rankle as our curve topper. And I don't mind running 4, honestly. He's... the evasion plus haste is phenomenal, and all of the different modes that you have... I have my Fitbit on way too tight. It seems to be cutting off my blood flow. That's no good. And then just, you know, when we can... And we were up against an aggro deck there, and they missed on a land for a turn or two, but we still managed to dump our hand ahead of the, like, mono-black aggro deck and just make them throw away 2 cards. And actually, our doing the draw there was probably fine, even if we... When we drew our Stormfist Crusader off of Rankle, because we wouldn't have had that card for them to have to drill bit anyways, so us drawing that card, 1, put them closer to death, which was relevant because we were the aggressor there. And then 2, we drew a card, even if what they drew was the drill bit, that meant they had to spend the drill bit to get rid of the card, which meant they were spending a mana, and sent 1 damage at our face instead of at our planeswalker, so it's all very relevant. This is not really keepable. This is definitely keepable. I think we're throwing back one of the thought erasures here because our curve is just so good. Hopefully they only have 1 thing that we need to rip out of their hand. Alright, so we want to lead on this one because that gives us untapped black or blue source, lets us painlessly thought erasure next turn. And there's untapped black, so majorly rewarded. Yeah, we're getting rid of this Spawn of Mayhem. I am not super impressed with Oathsworn Knight, so... And they can Spectacle this guy out next turn because we can't block the... We can't block the, the Order of Midnight. Okay, we're definitely shocking in a land. Then I think we're going in, and if they block Pumping, if they don't block, we're going to Spawn of Mayhem Spectacle. So we're walling their Order of Midnight. This guy gets in for 4, takes us to 10. This is assuming no removal or anything. Yep. Very okay with that. I mean, obviously we're at 10, that's a problem. But it also makes our spawn bigger than the spawn that they just got, so that's nice. So I think what we're supposed to do here is actually Regisar. Play this tapped. Hold back this guy to block. Hold back Knight of the Ebon Legion. Oh, I didn't have to hold back Knight of the Ebon Legion to block. Oh, well, we're not going to block with it. We're not going to attack with it either, but... And then just try to win off of Royal Scions pumping Rotting Regisaur. What can order of... Can they buy back anything with no? I mean, they can buy back Spawn of Mayhem. Oh, no, they can recast Spawn of Mayhem because they spectacled off of Spawn of Mayhem. So that's very good for them. Alright, that guy has to attack. If it didn't have that clause, I actually think that this would be a pretty good card, but the must attack every turn just... And then, that you know, makes itself smaller and all that. Just... seems so weak to me. Alright, so we are actually dead in the air because they were able to get back that second spawn. So... So we have to force them to block, is basically what it comes down to. Which means that I think we're dead. But math, as they say, is for blockers, so... Yep. They saw the line where they block, and then we lose. Close thing, though. The Order of Midnight actually was the thing that made that possible for them. Because if you weren't dead on board, we could have held back our Knight of the Ebon Legion, chump blocked the Oathsworn Knight. So they're having, you know, people were not happy with they're not very big on Order of Midnight, it felt like, when it was spoilered, but having a 2-drop that flies and has a value clause on it is not bad. In a aggressively slanted black deck with a fair amount of grindiness to it, it can definitely get the job done. And of course you saw both modes be very relevant there, because playing that on turn 2 was very good for them, and then rebuying Spawn of Mayhem is what won them that game. And sure, they could have had another thing in their hand that could have been good too, instead of rebuying that, but... Opponent goes first. We have turn 2 Thought Erasure, into turn 3 Murder, into turn 4 hopefully Rankle. Sounds great. I'll do 1 or 2 more and then call it for tonight. I'd like to try to record a video on my #1 deck pick for the format right now for people who don't want to play Golos Field. So I'm going to try to get that done after the stream here. Well, this means we're probably getting Outfitter to Ferried on turn 2, which feels really bad when you are on the draw with a Thought Erasure in your hand. Oh, well, never mind. Opponent asserts dominance. Alright, so let's get our 1 of basic island. Get rid of whatever they're ramping into. Probably. Ooh, okay, Nissa. I was going to say probably a Questing Beast, but Nissa is actually even worse for us than a Questing Beast would have been. Because they can play her guaranteed here with their 2 mana dorks. Oh. I guess they decided they don't want to. Huh. I don't know about that, because if we'd had another discard spell, then we just discard their Nissa. Which doesn't feel like the best thing to me. Okay, so question here is, do we hold up to kill Nissa? Probably not. We probably just play this out, and then we'll kill Nissa on our next turn. Alright, we're going to play this one and this one. Why did they shock the ninja so they can attack with Paradise Druid? That's a very aggressive play from our opponent, given that they're in top deck mode at this point. I think I might actually be okay with blocking this guy. Takes off a little bit of ramp, which this deck usually has Krasis and stuff like that. And we're not going to be able to pump it for a while, because we're going to be killing Nissa. And then probably playing Rankle. I'm not going to be able to swing past... I mean, we can... Well, I guess we could... Ooh, boy, that's not a good draw. Alright, so we just want to... kill the Nissa right now. I guess it might have been right to keep this guy around and then just start blocking their lands and pumping. But that means that we're taking like 5 damage per turn and then we're just dead in 3 turns. So that does not feel great. Alright, opponent gets in for 5, takes us to 8. Just got this right now because we're okay sitting on 5 lands. So let's do Murderous Rider and Stormfist Crusader. Gain some life. Be able to trade with trade one of these guys for the planes if they attack. In with it. And then hopefully next turn get in with some surprise Embercleave shenanigans. I really like that they killed our Murderous Rider. Like, I think this was a good play for them. To kill the Rider, which is our life gain, because we're actually behind in life here, and leave our Stormfist Crusader. So I like the Thought Erasure Rankle line here. Okay, this will get rid of one of their cards, unless they have 2 lands, in which case that's fine. Oh, it is 2 lands. Okay then. Well, I really like that on top. So let's... Rankle. And the question is, do we even go in with both of these? Like... Because we're at 9. We take them down by 5. Yeah, we go to 7. Yeah, we do this. I guess they do have those food they can sacrifice, but they're on a much shorter rope than they think they are because we have Embercleave and Scions in hand. Or, not in hand, but about to be in hand. I think I'm actually letting them... Well, this deck probably has both Oko and... Wicked Wolf in it, so I don't think I want them to be able to make all this food. And that also gains them life, so... I think I'm okay with this. Get a 3rd food. Yep. This may actually be totally wrong, because this thing kills us, but it takes 5 turns, so... I don't think I like having everyone draw here. Yeah, because we can't, even if we get a land, even if we get Royal Signs and then a land, we have 7. And this costs us 3, so then we have 4, and then we don't have enough to play Embercleave. So, that's unfortunate. So I think this turn we are going to just hope they brick. Get an Embercleave on Rankle, kill him in a couple turns. Because Rankle plus Embercleave plus Scions is actually they're dead. Well, that is not going to make them dead. Unfortunately, they can kill our Rankle here. But that Hydroid Krasis is going to kill us. So, let's have them sacrifice a creature. And discard a card. I guess they're just getting rid of their land at that point, but... I think I want to do all three, actually. Because I want to find another threat. And we did just that, so that's great. I assume that's turning our Embercleave into a... No! I mean, I think it's taking us to 5 here, so it doesn't... one turn, because they can make another food into a creature. Or they just have a... Deputy of Detention? Oh, to every time route. That's good.
This isn't a fight you can win. That's more like it.
Oh, they didn't actually bounce it. So, well, we are one short on Rankle plus Scions, or Rankle plus Equip. So, opponent has just got us, I believe. I mean, we can do this. We can... do that. Yeah, I should have played the Stormfist Crusader there, shouldn't I? Because then I could make them sack that and keep our Rankle. So at this point, I mean, assuming they see the line of bouncing Stormfist Crusader. You can just win off of your board right now. Oh yeah, that also works. Wait, no it doesn't. Yeah, they had lethal. If we get a land and they have bricks in hand, we just kill them here. That was a very sketchy play. I mean, like, they probably have like a Krasis or something, that's why they shocked in. Okay, they have another Teferi, so they bounce. Why didn't you just bounce our guy and kill us by making your food into a 3/3? That's still missing on the land. Unfortunate. I mean, we're still not dead, though, right? Because... oh, we're going to die to our Stormfist Crusader even if we block, because we'll gain 3, that'll deal us 3. Alright, well, we'll hit him on the turn. Give him the good game. Yeah, they were dead to a top deck land there, and we had a land 2 underneath our library. So yeah, that was very, very loose play from our opponent there when they just had lethal. I imagine they didn't see it. It didn't seem like they were BMing or anything. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they could have just killed us that previous turn instead of, you know, shocking in, playing a Teferi, bouncing the Embercleave. Alright, so we'll do one more, try to get our quest completed. And, yeah, so you're seeing, like, I've only won one game so far. But we're, like, I think I was mentioning this before, how it felt like I'm always about one turn too slow with these decks. And I think we're seeing that again here. Like, we're getting really close to where, like, it's one removal spell or, like, one attack step or something like that. Oh, this is really awkward not having the turn 1 Knight, but that's alright. It's a really good hand other than that, so. I'm having such a hard time with this hello. Okay, Sacred Foundry. So, potentially Feather, although not seeing much of that these days. Potentially, I'm going to lead on Stormfist here. That'll give us turn 3 Spectacle on Spawn of Mayhem, even through a blocker. Could be Field, could be... It's probably like a Jeskai Fires deck or something like that. Second Sacred Foundry, huh? Actually, that didn't guarantee Spectacle because we need another black source, but it also drew us into that black source, so that's nice. I assume we're going to get Deafening Clarion here. And we have a lot of lands, so I think I'm actually just going to drop Regisar. Like, I don't think they can do a hard board wipe here. So, they can remove our Regisar or our Crusader. I don't think they can get both. We can discard one of these lands easily to the Regisar. Okay, yeah, this looks like fires, because Castle Ardenvale often means fires. Right, we want to stack the triggers like this so that we can get our extra draw, and then decide what we want to discard. This is our second red source. Get rid of one Fabled Passage, I think, because I like having another duel. Okay, I think our opponent just dies, unless they have removal. Just how we drew it up. Turn 4 hit you for 19. Counting the trigger off of our Stormfist Crusader. So, alright, I think that's going to wrap it up for tonight so I can record my video that we can upload in a day or two. So let's take a look at this deck and what we thought of it. And then I'll do a quick comparison to the other Grixis list we have there too. So, what seemed good, what seemed bad, what seemed mediocre? Bonecrusher Giant continues to be probably one of the more mediocre cards in the deck. I think it's kind of a necessary evil. Like, you might replace it with a couple of shocks or something, but I think you want that cheap interaction, and having it be able to turn into a relevant body afterwards is fine. And also, I mean, we saw this happen once in a previous game that we lost because we didn't keep him around, but, you know, being played out of cards and then, okay, now I can put out Bonecrusher Giant and try to stick an Embercleave on it. And I've actually had games that I've won with the more aggressive version of this deck where opponent had three worthy knights out, and they were generating like 3 chump blockers every turn, and my entire board presence was a Bonecrusher Knight with an Embercleave on it, because they'd Murderous Ridered all of our guys. And we won the game just by every turn they had to throw their entire board in front of this Bonecrusher with Embercleave on it. So because of Embercleave and Royal Scions, I think that having this just as a, you know, late in the game, it's an extra thing you can throw down after it's already hit your opponent's thing. And actually the fact that there's so much 3-mana Teferi out there, I think actually makes Bonecrusher even better, because just being able to, you know, especially if like your opponent ramps into a turn 2 Teferi, which the Bant ramp decks do not infrequently, being able just to snipe this on turn 2, and then like if they bounce your knight and then play it as a threat later, that's not a niche thing. I don't think I've ever seen the damage prevention thing be relevant, but I guess if your opponent's playing Root Snare, which I have not seen at all, or Protection, I think that this should nullify Protection because that prevents damage. You know, marginal cases. We're up at the 4 Rotting Registrar again, and that has felt fantastic to me. Sometimes you get 2 for 1, and that's terrible. We probably would have... There's a good chance that we would have won... I don't remember what we discarded when we got 2 for 1 by the Murderous Knight in the game before the last one, but... Excuse me. Depending on what we discarded, we might have won that one because it was so close. If we hadn't gotten 2 for 1 there. But also, I mean, we won that last game on... Our opponent got 3 turns, and then we were hitting them for 19 because of Registrar. So I feel like 4 is fine, and then sometimes you take them out and you put in like Improbable Alliances or Duresses or something like that when they're just too liable to get chump blocked. Royal Scions, they actually didn't perform very well in these games, I feel like, because we were a little bit too on the back foot, and that is one of the disadvantages of doing this Grixis deck, where as opposed to a red-black deck, we have 8 extra shock lands, so we're taking additional damage. We have these Fabled Passages, so our lands are coming in and we're a little bit behind on our curve, so I have really liked 4 Royal Scions in this deck. They did not perform at all for us here. Well, they performed for us here. They did not perform very well for us here. We lost all of the games where we had them, I believe, because we only won 2. And they were kind of just clogging our hand. But that has not been the rule in my experience. In my experience, they've been very good. And while we didn't find any Golos Field, these guys are actually great against Golos Field because they give the first strike trample. And also, if you get a Royal Scions down on curve, it's very hard outside of specific hands that require a lot of things to go their way. It's pretty hard for the Golos deck to deal with Scions before they ultimate. And that can mean like 8 damage to the face, plus the 4 card draw, which, you know, gets you back on parity after a Krasis or something like that. So in that matchup, even though you think a card like this that isn't really... You know, it's not building your board presence or anything like that, but it's surviving through board wipes. It's getting you extra threats when you need them. It's making your threats evasive for their, you know, to get around their zombies, and then it just is hard for them to stop them from ulting. So that's sweet. We got a little bit wrecked by Embercleave in a game there, but we also saw how, you know, it was like you need to have removal or Embercleave is going to kill you, and you know. A couple times that worked, or a couple times that didn't work, and once it did, and it was great. And Rankle, I don't think there was ever a point at which I was like, boy, I wish that this Rankle were something else. Like, I don't have all the heuristics of this card down right, and there's definitely some places where this could have been better, and maybe it cost us a game here or there, I don't know. But this card can just take over a game so well. If your opponent is on like a single big beater plan or something like that, you can trade a Stormfist Crusader for their Questing Beast. We saw ourselves get down to 0 cards in hand, and then this guy is just, you know, it's edicting them and eating away at their hand every turn while damaging them. And then, of course, with the Embercleave, you know, it's 10 damage in the air. With haste, if you actually have a position where you can play this guy and Embercleave in the same turn, equip the Embercleave. Takes 7 mana, but we got up to that point before, I believe. And then, of course, post-board, if... You know, this becomes your engine for grinding through your opponent's, you know, mid-range value thing. This is how you're doing that. You're getting in, you're making them eat away at their hand, you're making them get rid of their creatures, and then you're sacrificing a fairy. You know, that's pretty good. You can't really get a better rate than that. So yeah, I think that we saw a decent offering of what this deck is trying to do. We'll jump over to the more aggressive build. And so the big difference here is that this one doesn't have Thought Erasure. I feel like Thought Erasure performed very well there, and I never felt like our mana really punished us too much. So, but I'm not really sure, because the difference here is that, remember how we're always coming up like a turn too slow? So maybe having these haste or flash or, you know, getting bigger threats would actually have been better in some of those games. Maybe that's what we needed to close them out in time. And, I mean... Blacklands Paragon, not a great card, but it can put you a turn ahead on the clock, either offensively or defensively. Dreadhorde Butcher, sometimes it gets walled, and it's terrible because your opponent goes turn 1 Grazer, and you vomit all over your keyboard, and you uninstall your game. But sometimes they go turn 1 tapped land on the draw, and you go turn 2 good luck. And because we have Royal Scions and Embercleave are actually... If I didn't have those cards in this deck, we would not have Dreadhorde Butcher in here, because I have not been impressed enough with this card consistently enough to warrant its inclusion. But when you can make this guy a 3/1 first strike, even without having pumped it, or when you can give it surprise double strike, and then double strike, this is another when it deals combat damage trigger. So if you can squeeze this guy through with Embercleave, it grows twice. And in addition to growing twice, it's dealing that damage twice. So it goes, even if it's a 1/1, it hits for 2 off of Embercleave, and then hits for 3. So that 1/1 just hit them for 5, and then became a 4/4 that next turn will hit them for 9. That's pretty scary. So anyway, maybe that's what we need. Maybe we need this version, and maybe we actually go down to 4 between these two and go up to the 4th Rankle. I didn't realize we only had 3 in here, but I feel like it's probably worth it. The other things you can include in a deck like this are Gutterbones, which Gutterbones is actually cool with Rankle because you can sacrifice it and then buy it back, or you can discard it and then buy it back, and so you can use that to break the asymmetry of the Rankle. But that card just doesn't really impress me too much outside of specific lists where you're making, maybe in something where it's more of an aristocrat style deck where you can get additional sacrifice value. But because of the things we mentioned before about how it's just easy to wall, everything that walls Red Horde Butcher pretty much walls Gutterbones, except for Gilded Goose, I guess. It just feels like that's not exactly where we want to be. I'd rather have these things that can come in with haste or flash, which is kind of the same thing as playing a 1-drop, right? Like, playing a slow 1-drop and playing a surprise 2-drop are similar in terms of how they pressure your opponent. And so just having these things to... Opponent goes Teferi, tick down on an empty board to draw a card. Okay, well, surprise, now your Teferi's dead and we have a 2/2. Or, okay,